You know, the great Howard Hawks left a lot of quality behind when he passed away a number of years ago, and one of them was his last movie, which a lot of people believe is John Wayne's strongest movie of the 1970s, especially like the Western genre, Rio Lobo. Now, this 1970 American Western film was directed and produced by Hawks and starred John Wayne from a screenplay by Burton Wohl and Lee Brackett. The film was shot in Cuernavaca, in the Mexican state of Morelos, and in Tucson, Arizona. The musical score was composed by the great Jerry Goldsmith. It was the third Howard Hawks film, varying the idea of a sheriff defending his office against belligerent outlaw elements in the town, after Rio Bravo, which came out 11 years before, and El Dorado in 1966. They both starred John Wayne. Rio Lobo was the last film again made by Hawks. Now, in this film, during the American Civil War, a secret Union Army payroll train is raided by Confederates, led by Captain Pierre Cordano and Sergeant Tuscarora Phillips. Union Colonel Court McNally loses his close friend, Lieutenant Ned Forsyth, in the raid, and the complexity of the Confederate scheme indicates that Union traders must have provided them with the details about the transport. In the ensuing pursuit, McNally's squad is spread thinner and thinner until he's left alone and captured by the Confederates. McNally tricks them by leading them to a Union camp and raising the alarm. Cordona and Tuscarora are captured, but refuse to tell McNally who sold them their information. Now, despite this development, the three men gain a mutual respect for each other. After the war ends, McNally visits Cordona and Tuscarora as they're being released. He asks them once more about the traders, but all they can provide is a physical description. However, they agreed to contact McNally if they see either of the two men again. Now, sometime later, McNally is contacted by his friend Sheriff Pat Cronin of Blackthorn, Texas. Cronin tells McNally that Cordona is staying at the local hotel and wants to talk to him. When McNally arrives in Blackthorn, he meets a young woman, Shasta Delaney, who has come to report the murder of her employer by a deputy of Rio Lobo Sheriff, Blue Tom Hendricks. Shortly afterwards, a posse from Rio Lobo arrives and wants to take Delaney away. Delaney identifies their leader, one Whitey Carter, as the murderer she was referring to. When one of the posse aims a gun at Cronin, Delaney shoots Whitey from under the table, resulting in a shootout in which McNally, Cronin, and Cordona finish off the posse. Now, Cordona identifies Whitey as one of the traders that McNally was looking for. He tells McNally that Tuscarora needs help. His father and the other ranchers are having land stolen by a rich man named Ketchum, who had the previous sheriff killed and installed Hendricks in his place. McNally, Cordona, and Delaney go to Rio Lobo, where they find the people living in terror of Hendricks and his men. Now, The Quick and the Dead kind of has the same plot, but this is more direct. Now, Tuscarora's girlfriend Maria hides him in her house, while her friend Amelia distracts Hendricks' men. Hendricks has Tuscarora arrested on trumped-up charges, so McNally's group goes to get help from Tuscarora's father, Old Man Phillips. Now, McNally, Cordona, and Phillips sneak into Ketchum's ranch, and McNally discovers that Ketchum is really Union Sergeant Major Ike Gorman, the second trader he was searching for. McNally attacks Gorman and forces him to sign the deeds back to the rightful owners. Taking Gorman hostage, they send Cordona ahead to find the U.S. States Cavalry, and upon arrival in Rio Lobo, they discover that Hendricks has beaten Maria and disfigures Amelita's face with a knife for helping McNally. Amelita swears to McNally that she will kill Hendricks herself. The men eventually force Hendricks' party out of jail and hold up there with Tuscarora to await the cavalry. However, Hendricks' men captured Cordona before he gets far and offer to trade him for Gorman. During the prisoner exchange, Cordona managed to give his captors the slip. McNally tells Hendricks that Gorman is no longer of any use to the sheriff since he signed back the deeds. Angered, Hendricks guns down his own boss, starting a firefight in which he and McNally are wounded. After a failed attempt to blow up the cantina McNally's allies are using as a base, Hendricks' men are outflanked by the rest of the townspeople who have rallied to help. Hendricks' men abandon him, and Hendricks tried to shoot at them, but he's been using his rifle as a crutch, and with his muzzle clogged with dust, it explodes in his face as he stumbles to his horse. Amelita shoots him, thus fulfilling her promise to McNally. Now, screenplay again by Wohl and Brackett, story by Wohl, starring again Wayne, Jorge Rivera, Jennifer O'Neill, Jack Lamb, Victor French, and Susana Dos Amantes. Cinematography, William H. Cloutier. Edited by John Woodcock. Music by Goldsmith. Color process Technicolor. Production company, Cinema Center Films and Malabar Productions. Distributed by National General Pictures. Now, it came out in late December 1970 at 114 minutes, and it was a box office bomb, actually, one of the rare ones. With a $6 million budget, it only made $4.25 million in North American rentals. Now, other key actors, including Sherry Lansing, David Huddleston, Mike Henry, Billy Williams, of course, Jim Davis as the Rio Lobo deputy of Dallas fame, Dean Smith, Robert Donner, Hank Warden, Peter Jason, Edward Faulkner, Chuck Courtney, George Plimpton in a cameo in Don Red Berry. Now, the film was meant to be shot in Durango on a budget of $5 million. However, shooting on the movie Lawman took up facilities there, so Hawks and Cinema Center had to spend an extra $1 million to allow shooting at Old Tucson Studios near L.A. Again, the film was shot in Technicolor. Now, Hawks was eventually injured while filming the railway scene, which required 4 stitches. Now, Hawks said he had to fight Cinema Center to cast Chris Mitchum, whose father was actor Robert Mitchum in the movie. Now, the script was rewritten throughout production, you can see the problem was. Now, the film made US $4.25 million rentals, which was 20th among the highest money-making pictures of the year, but it grossed $2 million less than the $6 million budget, making it for Wayne a box office bomb. Upon release, the film received mostly negative reviews. Variety wrote that Hawks' direction is as listless as the plot. Roger Ebert, on the other hand, who gave the film 3 to 4 stars, said Rio Lobo is just a shade tired, especially after finally hone humor and action of El Dorado. Roger Greenspan of the New York Times said the film was close enough to greatness to stand above anything else so far in the current season. His comments surprised our other critics and resulted in numerous angry letters sent to the newspaper. Now, in retrospect, the film does have better reviews from contemporary critics. In Rotten Tomatoes, the film has a 70% rating based on 22 reviews, with an average rating of 6.1 out of 10. The consensus is that Howard Hawks and John Wayne reunite to riff on their own Rio Bravo, and while the results are less memorable, the movie does offer a curiously cynical perspective. In a retrospective review, Jonathan Rosenbaum stated, the fact that his best is action sequence, the first was directed by the second unit, is emblematic of Hawks' relative lack of engagement with the material. Basically, when I saw the movie, I really didn't believe what Hawks was trying to tell me because it just seemed to be a rehash rather than a celebration of the Wayne oeuvre. Now, the fact is, its best action sequence, again, for TV Guide wrote, for such a refined director as Hawks to end his career on a sad note like this, having made some of the finest films in history of American cinema, it's an atrocity, not word the silver used in a negative. Writing for Time Out, Jeff Andrews said, if it lacks the formal perfection of Rio Bravo and the moving elegy for men grown old of El Dorado, it's still a marvelous film. Empire writer E. Nathan wrote in January 2000, this well-bred Westerner just a routine canter through teams and gunfights as worn as the saddles. Now, Quentin Tarantino, who loves his Western, cited Rio Lobo as one of the reasons he wanted to have a short directing career. The most cutting-edge artists, the coolest guys, the hippest dudes, they're the ones that stay at the party too long. They're the ones that make those last 2 or 3 movies that are completely out of touch and do not realize the world has turned on them. I don't want to make Rio Lobo. Now, the music for Rio Lobo was composed again by Goldsmith. Soundtrack was eventually released in 2001 in all places Belgium on Prometheus Records. Now, I've seen this movie at least twice, and the poster, Robert Evans once said, you see the poster, I can sell the movie. He saw the poster and said, could be another one of the Searchers or, one of the tough John Wayne movies, and it ended up being kind of flat because he didn't have the cast like he had in other key movies. Like there was no Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson to fall back upon, which was part of the Hawks oeuvre before. But for me, it's about 3 stars out of 5. It's a good Sunday afternoon movie, but I have to be totally transparent. I first saw the movie in French, and the translation is better than the English translation. To see John Wayne as a Quebecois accent in this movie really puts a better perspective than an Anglophone white man that he plays in real life. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing here with our John Wayne podcast, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or super chat, or whatever you like to support the channel. Just remember that requests for the channel are always highly appreciated and always highly considered. Thanks for listening. Bye.